Come on in to Margaret McSweeney's Kitchen for Kitchen Chat, where every week you'll meet chefs, cookbook authors, foodies, gourmets, and just plain people who love to eat. And along with laughter, chat, recipes, and stories about food, you'll sometimes also hear words of inspiration, love, and hope. As Margaret always says, Kitchen Chat is food for the senses and food for the soul. So grab a cup of coffee, put your feet up on a comfy chair, and get ready to spend a little time with Margaret and her friends.
Hello, dear foodie friends, and welcome to Kitchen Chat. I'm your host, Margaret McSweeney, and I'm so glad you're joining me today in the beautiful Middleby Residential Showroom in the A&D building in New York City. I'm here with my co-host and favorite chef, Chef Jaime Laurita.
Thank you, Margaret, for having me here in our second showroom for Middleby Residential here in New York City.
And I am so thrilled. We are both so thrilled and honored to be here today with truly a legend, a master of hospitality, Drew Nieporent, who needs no introduction. You've heard of Nobu, Tribeca Grill, everything. He is the founder of the Myriad Restaurant Group and is just making the world a delicious place. So welcome to Kitchen Chat.
Thank you very much.
And we met, just some background on this. Drew, I don't know if you remember when we first met. It was in 2015 at the IACP celebration for Chef Jacques Pepin's 80th birthday in Washington, D.C. Yes, and I'll never forget, all of the great chefs were getting on the stage. And I could tell you wanted a picture. And remember I said, Drew, would you like me to take a picture? And I took that picture for you. And,
I have about 28,000 pictures in my phone, so thank you for doing that for me. And the people freak out when I show them the pictures. They love the pictures.
Oh, good. Well, that's just...
Every picture tells a story. It's true. Sometimes you capture something very unique, and it's fantastic, and it's great.
And you have so many stories to share, and this is just such an honor. And the first story is, if you could share with our viewers and listeners where you were earlier today and came from.
Yeah, I guess it's the 18th year of the Tribeca Film Festival. So it started very small, but it was Robert De Niro and his partner Jane Rosenthal. You know, after 9/11, they were being motivated to do something downtown, and they had explored the idea of doing a film festival, but then they put it into action, and the thing is just, you know, it's taken off tremendously. We do a jurors luncheon because they have a group of people who are jurors, and the jurors tend to be very celebrated actors and actresses. So I think it was a lunch for about 130.
130.
Whoopi Goldberg and Alec Baldwin and Billy Crystal and Deborah Messing, and actually Aaron Rodgers was there, the quarterback for the, I don't know what he was doing there, but he was there. And quite a number of people, and it was a terrific afternoon. But of course, I came up here because I wanted to be with you.
Oh, thank you. This is
all
just
because
so
you took that picture, Margaret.
Exactly.
And IACP as well. Wonderful.
And if I recall, Jacques Pepin actually had a stroke.
Yes.
And he couldn't make it. But I saw Jacques at his, they did a foundation dinner for him. It must have been about 3 weeks ago. It was fantastic. They had Jose Andres and Gabriel Cruyff cooked, and Le Cuckoo, Daniel Rose. The food was great. Over on, it's not far from here, actually.
So, Drew, do me a favor and dial it back a little bit.
Yeah.
Let's go back to like almost the beginning of when you were maybe manifesting this reality.
As a young man, I'm 29 years old.
Yeah. How did it begin, and what were your dreams?
Well, I grew up here. I grew up in Manhattan. In fact, as I was walking here, 58th Street, there was a terrific restaurant that my father used to take me to, right on 58th between 2nd and 1st, called Pols. It was a fellow by the name of Paul Steinler, and he was a Czechoslovakian, but he cooked the most marvelous food you've ever eaten in your life. But the point was, my father had worked for the State Liquor Authority, licensing restaurants in the 60s and 70s. I was 8, 10, 12. My father started taking us out to restaurants. He got to know the restaurateurs. And it was like a kid in a candy store. I just got turned on by the whole theater of dining out. I mean, hundreds, literally, French restaurants, Chinese restaurants, Italian restaurants. And these people were right off the boat. They didn't really understand the machinations of getting a liquor license, so my father helped them, and they were indebted to him. They invited us in for dinner. And I guess if you grew up in a house with a piano, you're going to gravitate to music. I gravitated to food, and I started reading Julia Child and watched the Galloping Gourmet. And my first opportunity really became at McDonald's. I worked in 1972 when I was in high school. Then I got into Cornell Hotel School. Then at 18, I worked on a first-class cruise liner, a 600-seat passenger ship. You work breakfast, lunch, and dinner 7 days a week.
Sure.
It was all indoctrination, but I always wanted to open my own restaurant. And finally, in 1985, 39 years ago? No, 35 years ago, we opened Montrachet with David Boulay, very talented young fellow, and we got 3 stars with a $16 menu.
Wow.
Incredible.
Robert De Niro was a customer. Would you ever want to do another restaurant in Tribeca? I said, are you talking to me? Because and we opened the Tribeca Grill 5 years later in 1990. That's now 29 years. Sean Penn, Bill Murray, Mikhail Baryshnikov, Lou Diamond Phillips, Ed Harris, Christopher Walken, all our partners. I mean, that restaurant's done tremendous. And then in 1994, perhaps one of the most audacious restaurant things that ever happened in America is Nobu.
Yes.
Nobu Matsuhisa. There are now over 50 Nobus around the world.
That's
Nobu
incredible.
hotels, Nobu everywhere. We just celebrated 26 years of Nobu. So I mean, I've had a terrific career. I've done, over the 40 years, I've opened about 40 different restaurants. The Nobus are in excess of that. I had restaurants in San Francisco, Martha's Vineyard, Boca Raton, Florida, Moscow. I mean, I've been around quite some time, so it's been great.
And you were the first bi-coastal restaurateur.
I think at the time in '94, nobody was kind of doing what I was doing. I think people looked at me and they said, yeah, "He's not that smart. We can do what he does," But back then, you could do it and make money. Today, the restaurant business is a little different. It's a little harder today.
Yeah. I'll never forget, I was in South Beach and had the honor of meeting Chef Nobu.
Oh, okay.
Yes, just lovely. He was in town. There was a movie, the Robert De Niro documentary with Ellis Island.
Oh, okay.
Came
Very
out.
good.
Yeah,
Okay,
so
very
there was the debut of that.
Sure.
And
Yeah, we've been partners since 1994. Nobu started in 1987 in a small little place on La Cienega Boulevard, and from that restaurant, once we opened Nobu in '94, it just took off tremendously. And then we went to London in '97, and London basically broke open a lot of doors. I mean, there are now 3 Nobus in London. Shore,
I didn't know that.
Park Lane, Berkeley Square. But people, it's a lifestyle decision. They want Nobu in their life, so
Yeah.
yes.
pretty amazing.
So as far as like building a restaurant and designing a restaurant, I design the showrooms and I'm also a chef for Middleby. And the equipment, I'm sure, in the restaurant, you probably use Middleby equipment. We own Blodgett, Jade, Pitco.
I see you have gorgeous things here.
Thank you. Yeah. So as far as the team behind you, talk to us about that. Take us like behind the scenes.
In terms of the Nobus, David Rockwell used to call me up. He was an unknown architect, and he wanted to work on something. And I know he had done a sushi bar, so I was like, I got to get this guy off my back. So I threw him a bone. He did the 105 Hudson Street, which was our first Nobu, and he did an amazing job. I mean, and so he's been our collaborator now on the vast majority of the Nobus, and he always delivers the goods. I think, sometimes when you have a great success in the restaurant business, you try to figure out who's the person responsible or what led up to that success. But in the case of Nobu, it's a lot of little elements, and it's like the stars all lined up.
Timing.
And it all came together.
Right.
We also the restaurants are built rather well, and look, sometimes you stray from the farm. You go to a different designer or builder, and then you wind up going back because the people that you work with and had the most success with are the ones that you tend to gravitate back to.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes. So within the food industry, did you ever know Julia Child?
I did, actually.
Oh,
yeah.
and what are some fun memories?
Well, Julia Child, actually, I had a restaurant in the Sony building, and she had never met Emeril Lagasse. And Emeril was at his height, and, you know, it's just kind of like, you know, people were trying to figure out, is Emeril the anti-Julia Child? But Emeril's a terrific person. And so they got along famously, and they, you know, they had a dinner in the restaurant, but we had a movie premiere that night. It was called the Berkeley Bar and Grill, and Robin Williams was in this movie. It was called Jacob's. I think it's called Jacob's Liar or something like that fashion. It was an obscure film, but Robin Williams came in, and Robin Williams is quite a foodie, and he sees Julia and Emeril, and I was trying to get them out because the premiere party was about to start, and Robin comes up to Julia and says, "Oh, you know," he's kvelling over her, and you know, when he stopped and they started walking, I heard Julia say, "Who was that man?" You know, she had no idea that it was Robin Williams. That's one thing, but then
you know what we should do? We should actually have, every single time we have a kitchen chat, it seems that someone does a Julia Child impression.
Yes.
We should do a sizzle reel of all the Julia Child impressions that happen on Kitchen Chat.
At the very beginning of the Food Network, they actually had Julia Child interview me, and I was she interviewed me on a show called What's Happening in Food Today or something of that nature. It was a show that was David Rosengarten did, and there was one part I'll never forget. You know, they said, "Well, we want to do some beauty shots." I didn't know what a beauty shot was. You know what a beauty shot is?
I look every day.
Yeah. So they said, just let Julia, you know, and so she's looking at me, and she started with the lips, and like you know, she's flirting with me. I was like, "Wow, this is great." So I believe it or not, I have this incredible. And then, of course, when she died, Nora Ephron did a film called Julia.
Yes.
And I was a good friend of Nora Ephron's, and actually she was still alive. The movie, she wrote the movie.
Yes.
And at the after party, we did Boeuf Bourguignon, which was Boeuf Bourguignon, you know. But we did a good one, and we got the Nora Ephron seal of approval. But no, Julia Child was one of a kind. She's a terrific person. I've been to her house in Cambridge. It's
pretty astounding, the ripple effect of Julia Child.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's not even a ripple effect. It's like waves.
Well, I mean, and Dan Aykroyd on Saturday Night Live doing the.
Yeah.
Oh yes, the fish blender.
That was the greatest thing ever.
That was great. Oh, and was there anyone else within the culinary side that
I think
made
there's
an
been
impact?
everybody. You know, I was trying to figure this out the other day. I was like, who haven't I met? You know, because I have pictures with Muhammad Ali and.
Let's throw some names out there. Madonna.
Yes.
Well, you know, Madonna was married to Sean Penn.
Correct.
So she came to Tribeca Grill.
Do I look a little like Sean Penn?
Of course. I don't know if you want to look like Sean.
I know he's.
And do I look like Madonna?
I was thinking about it the other day, like yesterday at the Apollo. You know, they opened the film festival with the documentary called The Apollo, and we were all at the Apollo Theater, and I was right next to Ta-Nehisi Coates, who's like a modern day James Baldwin. And then when the film starts, the film begins and ends with Ta-Nehisi Coates. Basically, they read his book at the Apollo. They do an enactment, and I was like, you know, my wife absolutely adores Ta-Nehisi, so. You know, that was a kick. Smokey Robinson was sitting behind me. I mean, it was amazing. But you know, when you're partners with Robert De Niro, I think you're going to tend to meet a lot of very interesting people.
Yes.
But Bill Murray is a terrific partner. Obviously, Robin Williams is just a pure mensch. Today, I sat at a table with Rob Reiner and his wife Michelle and their kids and. Harry Shearer, who does 24 voices on The Simpsons. I mean, that was amazing. And
you must have so many moments like that you can look back on.
And 29,000 pictures on the phone.
I have a lot of pictures. I was like looking the other day, and I saw a picture that I didn't recall, but I was with James Taylor, who I absolutely adore.
I love James
and
Taylor.
I love music too. So
yeah, so do I. I travel with I'm a personal chef to everybody you can imagine. I travel with Steven Tyler, Sting, Madonna, all kinds of people.
Sting is amazing too.
He's the best, truly. Is there any moment though that really truly stands out that you just like go back to in your life and think that happened?
Well, when I was a young man, it was like 1982. I was the general manager in the Village of a restaurant called 24 Fifth Avenue, and James Beard came in, and he was very, he had gout, so he walked very slowly, and then he sat down and he ordered a Manhattan neat. And I'd never heard that phrase. I didn't know what neat meant, but obviously I learned neat meant no ice or whatever it meant. Anyway, the next time he came in, I just went over to him and I said, nice to have you back, Mr. Beard. Would you like a Manhattan neat? And he did it was like one of those things where he acknowledged that was service.
Yeah.
What I had just done. And, it wasn't too premeditated. It was just a normal thing. And really, our business is about anticipating the guest's needs. If we can think for the guest, the guest never has to say, can you please bring me, every time there's the guest has to ask you for something, it's troublesome. So when, what do? We give them bread, we give them water, we give them a menu, so we try to make it easier on the guests. So I think just anticipating the guest needs in a service way, and James Beard, of course, turned out to be a legend, so amazing person.
That is incredible.
But we just did a party for, I don't know how many times we've done this party. Bruce Springsteen, his manager, we do a charity for them, and Bruce hadn't played music since his Broadway shows. He did 200 plus Broadway shows. There was he was in the mood. He was at Tribeca, and he got on stage and he played 2 songs. So, things like that are pretty amazing.
That is incredible. And you mentioned something so important, and you have such a huge heart for charity, and you make such a difference. Yeah, we do a lot of charity, of course. The one thing I've noticed is the people in the food business are not only charitable, but they're nice people. You see other industries, I'm close to the movie industry, I'm close to the fashion. There's a lot of phony baloney, but the restaurant business is pretty true blue. People are pretty nice. Yes.
Do you have a tip for somebody that's in the restaurant business that may be either young or struggling or...
Get out while you can.
See, there it is.
That's my tip. No, I would just say it's, it might sound like a cliche, but it's a marathon. It's not a race. You have to, when I look over my shoulder, I'm 63. I've been doing it, since I was owning restaurants since I was 29. So, for the better part of 33 years. And I don't know where all that time goes. But essentially, I think the most important thing is you come to work and you're the same person. If you come to work and you're a different person and you start trying to make yourself important, that doesn't really work.
Such good advice.
Just try to be consistent.
Mm-hmm. Good advice.
Wow. And consistency causes success, and you have...
you have to calibrate all of your stoves here, because if you put something in and you turn it to 400 and it's not 400, you're going to have problems. So,
consistent temperature.
You have to rely on things. There are things that you have to rely on, but and also just associate yourself with the best products and the best people. That's key.
That is great. Wonderful advice here and incredible stories. Now,
right.
I always like to ask the guests, what is your most special taste memory from childhood? And do any of your restaurants feature that dish that brings you back home?
Yeah, that's really kind of a good thought. I'd like to live in a world of all kinds of ethnic foods. So, I do have very clear taste memories as a child of certain dishes. But when I was coming up in the restaurant business, the worst thing you could do is to tell a chef hand a chef a recipe or say, I want you to cook this. You really, you sort of want that dish, but you want to sort of say, you want to talk about it and you want them to adopt it.
Yeah.
Or one day they're going to come and say, you used to talk to me about this thing and I blah, 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 blah. Even today, we had to serve 130 people for lunch. It was a very simple luncheon, choice of a pasta and a seafood salad. But, I don't know how many times I was like, can you make sure you do, make sure. And, you get maybe 75% of what you ask for. Even this late in my career, it's an amazing thing. But, when people are talented, especially now, it's very hard for them to take direction. You say, you have the meetings and then things happen the way they happen. So, but I'm content. I had a terrific career, collaborated with a lot of great people. And you know, if you haven't eaten by restaurants, you better check them out.
Absolutely.
29 years.
Wow. Well, congratulations on all that you've done and that you continue to do. And it is just such an honor to have you on Kitchen Chat.
No, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you, Jamie.
The pleasure is all mine.
that.
To meet people like this is a dream. So thank you, Margaret.
A highlight milestone in my culinary journey here. And thank you, dear foodie friends, for joining the fun here on Kitchen Chat. I hope that you will come visit the showroom, Middleby Residential, here in New York City in the A&D building, and also come visit Chef Jaime Laurita in the showroom, Middleby Residential Showroom in Chicago at the Merchandise Mart. You never know what's going on in the background here.
We've got a big crowd behind us. Lots of cooking going on.
Yes. And also, for more kitchen inspiration, visit thevikinglife.com, and then come visit me in my kitchen at kitchenchat.info. And always remember to take a moment and savor the day.
Thanks for joining Margaret for Kitchen Chat today. Margaret would be so excited for you to drop by and visit with her at kitchenchat.info, where you'll enjoy podcasts, blogs, recipes, tips from chefs, and even great giveaways. She invites you to share your recipes and kitchen stories too. As Margaret always says, savor the day.